Interesting. Very nice. Yes. I like what this art gallery has in store for me. A lot of amazing displays here. All this artwork. It's incredible. Wow. Oh, hello. Well, welcome to another Down the Rabbit Hole video. We're being very artistic today. I even have my beatnik outfit on to celebrate. We're talking about art and artists, and we're in a gallery, etc. This is actually a video response to Wee Bob, who posted recently that he's actually moved his artwork from his channel, that he does a whole bunch of different things, both gaming and his wonderful artwork. He's moving that to a new channel that's just strictly the art. I think it's WB Art. I'm going to put the link down below. Also the link below to Wee Bob's regular channel where he talks about gaming stuff. He recently decided to post some questions that are kind of based on questions apparently I've asked as well of people like Alan Stewart in the past, and I just thought, well, I gotta do a video response and do my answers to Wee Bob's questions. So that's what we're doing here, and we're doing it in a very artistic way. Anyway, so he's got some interesting ones. I'm going to go through them here. Question number 1. This is actually one that I had asked. Did VR flop? Or did it live up to your expectations? Was it another Microsoft Kinect? I think the current situation that's going on with the pandemic and all that, and quarantine and people being locked home, a lot of people had said this is going to be the moment for VR to shine, because this will be the time people want to get out and about, but they can't, so they will obviously buy VR in droves. And it's not like it's really set the VR market on fire. I mean, it has helped a little bit. I actually suspect the upcoming Star Wars Squadrons game in October is really going to move some headsets, but did VR flop? No, I think if anything, and I love my VR. I mean, I play the heck out of that thing. I'm going to do it after this video response. Did it flop though? I would put it in the same league as kind of, it's its own niche category in the gaming landscape that has a very passionate, very decent market share and fan base, but it hasn't replaced it. It hasn't, like, not everything is coming out. The new Cyberpunk 2077 is not coming out in VR. Like, it's not like games are now only going to be in VR. And there's a few reasons for that. I think the technology, even when it's really good, there are people who are just not able to appreciate the goggles and get the view. Case in point, my own brother, he has actually tried VR. I think somebody got him to try out either the Star Trek Bridge Crew experience or the Star Wars X-Wing mission in the first Battlefront 2015. And he was just like, no, I can't do this. This is not for me. I don't like it. And he loves Star Trek and Star Wars as much as me. Like you would think, to sit on the bridge of the Enterprise or to sit in the cockpit of an X-Wing. This is your dream come true, man. Yeah, it just doesn't work for him. So I think, you know, and there's been people on like IGN, some of the hosts in the Game Scoop podcast have talked about how my eyes have got some myopic sort of condition, and I don't like 3D movies. I don't like putting VR headsets on. Give me my old-fashioned standard flat gaming. So I think the technology is a barrier that's just simply never going to be overcome in that regard. No matter how good the games get, no matter how realistic they look, there's going to be a big chunk of the population that just don't like it. Vectrex Rowley talked about this way long ago with the 3D imager for the Vectrex. He said there are people who just don't like the shutter effect on your eyes. So it's not going to ever happen, I don't think. I don't think it'll ever overcome and become the mainstay version of gaming, but what there is really good. I would actually say it's the equivalent, and I've asked on a few forums, it's kind of like there are a big chunk of racing car driver gamers who have a steering wheel and the pedals and a gear shift, and they've got a chair to sit in. Like, they really have made the driving experience virtual in their living room. And there's a big chunk of the gaming landscape that do that regularly. That's their thing. But it's not like all racing games are now like specifically for that. I'm sure there's a lot of compatibility, but you can play racing games without needing a steering wheel and the gear shift and the pedals. You can play it with a regular controller. I would say for the vast majority of people who do, or who can play it in either way, they probably play it with just the controller. Similarly with VR, I think it's a little subsection of the market, and it's just going to be remaining that little cordoned off area that's full of really, really enthusiastic people who love the experience, who can enjoy it because our eyes are fine with it. But I don't think it has really taken over. It hasn't really pushed the needle as far as gaming is concerned. It's really cool if you're into it, but there's a lot of people who aren't into it. So VR has not been a flop. Was Kinect a flop? Yeah. But I think that was because Microsoft were pursuing the Wii kind of motion control thing from the early 2000s, late 2000s, and just it didn't take off for that regard. And they were doing that at a detriment to the processing power of the Xbox One, and it was more expensive because you needed the Kinect hardware. So I think that flopped for a different reason. Microsoft was forcing it on people. People didn't want to use it, and it just became a flop for that reason. So that's my perspective on is VR a flop? Bob's first question. Bob's second question is 3 consoles that you would like to own and why? One of these I've discussed many times, and that is the Sega Saturn, very specifically one that can play Japanese import games and has a 4 megabyte expansion, because the game I really, really want to play is Final Fight Revenge, but that's hard to do. I've talked about this before. So a Sega Saturn, you know what I'd really like is for Sega to release a Saturn Mini, especially one that I can load my ROMs on, or have it come with Final Fight Revenge. It's really the only game of that console I want to play. So Sega Saturn is one, and that's why. 2 others. I don't really have a lot of others in mind. I mean, there's games, or there's consoles that I have looked at and thought, yeah, that would be cool for a handful of games like the Saturn. I mean, if money was no object and if the thing fully was functional, the Atari Cosmos, that was a handheld that never really took off or launched, but if I could just, if there's anything possible, then yes, an Atari Cosmos, please. I would like to have one of those, because who knows what that would have been like. That 70s holographic technology boggles my mind. What was that experience? I'd like to know, but it didn't really happen, so I guess that's number 2. And number 3, maybe the Milton Bradley Microvision, because that was the first cartridge-based handheld gaming machine, and although it's incredibly basic, I think it's really cool. I have seen them kicking around at like the Portland Retro Gaming Expo and things like that. They are going up in price and value because they're a pretty rare item. And the big killer, those LCD screens have been rotting and dying. I mean, Willie from Arcade USA has a Microvision, and he has played it, and you can see some of the edges of the pixels are starting to get dead cells in them, so you're kind of like, the days are numbered on that one. And I don't think they would ever recreate that as a Microvision Mini or anything like that. I don't think anybody has any nostalgia beyond old people like me for that particular handheld. I think the Game Boy kind of was the launcher in that space that everybody likes, so you're not going to ever see a Microvision Mini ever come out. So, but okay, there you go. The Sega Saturn, the Atari Cosmos, and the Milton Bradley Microvision would be 3 consoles I would like to have, but I don't, and that's why. Question number 3. What gaming TV shows did you watch as a kid? This one's easy. None. There weren't any. Now, there were shows that existed back then. Starcade was around in the 80s, which I would have loved to have watched, but we never had that in Canada, and the cable system that we were on, that channel was, or that show was just never presented to us. So I have found out about Starcade in the interim, and I've got them all on disc, and they're great to watch. I would like to have watched them back in the day, but I don't have any. That was not a memory of mine. Bob talks about Games Master, which was big in the UK. I wish we had something like that in Canada or coming out of the US. There were eventually Nickelodeon shows in like the 90s that were video game centered, but by that point I was beyond the console era, so I didn't really care. So that was not really something I wanted to play or watch. So yeah, there weren't any. What was it? How's it worded exactly? What gaming TV shows did you watch as a kid? I didn't watch any. Not video gaming. No. So question number 4 is an interesting one. What did you do before YouTube, and what has YouTube taught you? Now, he means as a hobby, because I was like, what do you mean, like as a job? Or okay, so what did I do as a hobby before YouTube? Mostly just played video games. It's ironic that now that I am doing all this YouTube stuff, I don't play as often as I used to. I mean, I do for the channel. There'll be games that I have not heard of before that I want to try out, and I throw them into, the Super NES or the Vectrex or something, and I'll play them for making a video out of it. But I don't really play as much as I used to. And when I do, it's VR. It's modern stuff. So yeah, what I used to do before I had a YouTube hobby was playing video games. A bit. And not too much beyond that. There were other things I was trying to do. I've talked about on my channel before, both Dungeons and Dragons and later on Star Frontiers. I was doing that a lot, but as we were getting older, careers and family life and things were taking over, so that was kind of fading away. Video games had kind of replaced that for me because it was being able to do the stuff that was in D&D or Star Frontiers. And I was the player this time. I wasn't the referee. I was like, hey, I don't know what's going to happen next. And I'm running through and I'm shooting or pulling out my sword. So video games replaced the pen and paper role playing, and that was what I did before YouTube. So now the other part of the question is, it's an interesting, I had 2 takes on this. What has YouTube taught you? At first, I thought a lesson I have learned out of doing YouTube videos has been there are things that you have in your mind that when you are going to say them, you think, oh yeah, that's going to be awesome and hits the point exactly on the head. And then it comes out of your mouth and it can either be kind of insulting or cringy or not the way you had intended it at all. And it's very good to edit your thoughts or, edit when you're making the videos. Like, oh no, take that question out. That was not, you didn't word that very well. So making YouTube videos has taught me there are things that I think in my head. It's kind of like sending an email to somebody that could be a little snarky and you think, oh yeah, obviously that's very funny what I just said there. And then the person reads it and gets very insulted by it. So it's kind of like that. I thought, ooh, yeah, I have learned to take a moment and rephrase what is in my head before I let it blurt out, because it could come out bad. But I don't know that that's necessarily what Weebob meant. He was talking about how YouTube has taught him the existence of a whole bunch of cool machines like the Vectrex or various others. So to interpret it in that sense, what have I learned? What has YouTube educated me on? I think there's been a lot of things that I have learned about the video game world, especially some of the big controversies that I had never known. Or if not controversies, amazing stories that I'd never heard. For example, in the early to mid 80s, Nintendo were thinking, hey, we're thinking of taking our very successful family computer, the Famicom, bringing it to the West, knocking on the door of Atari to say, you're the biggest video game manufacturer here in the West. We would like to make our Famicom work with your name on it. Wouldn't you like to do a deal? And Atari messed that up, and Nintendo went on to own the 80s. That was something I had never known. There's also a flip side of that, the very famous Sony and Nintendo PlayStation thing that didn't happen because Nintendo thought at the last minute, Sony wants to control the pressing of the discs for this system. We're out. We're going with Philips. Yeah, Philips. And Sony were like, what? You just pulled a 180 on us? Okay, fine, we're going to release the Sony PlayStation. And Nintendo thinking, ha! That'll never become anything. So yeah, there have been some very interesting parts of history that I've learned. There was something about the guy who made Elite. Oh, what the heck was it now? Or John Romero, who was one of the halves of the two guys who made Doom. I learned a very interesting bunch of stuff about him and why he had the breakaway from id, and John Carmack continued to make Doom games. John Romero had kind of learned that as a creative, artistic person, he was like, okay, we're going to make a new company and we're going to make a new game called Daikatana, and we are going to make sure the vision of the artist is what is most important, and to heck with these production times and getting stuff out the door. And Daikatana circled round and round and round forever and was never out, and when it did finally come out, it was a broken mess. That was kind of interesting to find that out. That's something I learned from YouTube. So there have been a whole bunch of those kinds of little things that I learned as a history lesson from watching a lot of YouTube videos. So I think that more correctly answers Bob's questions, at least I hope so. So let's go on with the last one then. What was your favorite gaming magazine? Now, again, much like the video TV show of, what gaming did you like to watch on TV, there weren't a lot of video game related magazines when I was in my youth, at least not anything I could get my hands on. We're talking the early 80s, so Nintendo Power didn't exist yet, and I wouldn't have bought it anyway. Video games were in this weird space. A friend of mine in the late 70s, early 80s had a subscription to, I think, is it Byte magazine? Where you could learn about new personal computers and all of their information. And one of the cool features is at the back they would have an actual program, line by line, and you could sit there and you could type the whole thing out for hours at a time. And then you could run the program, and it's like, hey, wow, I can make a spreadsheet or whatever the equivalent was back then. And one of the things that he did that I was so blown away by is he typed in this very long bit of code, and it was sort of the earliest prototype Star Wars game where you're going down the Death Star trench, so you got this sort of U shape of asterisk characters or ASCII characters, and you are the little letter X that's moving around. It's like a cross section of the Death Star trench. So you got to move the X around as you're flying down this tunnel, and then behind you will be a letter H for a TIE fighter, and the TIE fighter is going to try and occupy the same space as if it's behind you, so it would shoot you, so you got to avoid. And that blew me away. It's like, what? Star Wars and video games together? Think of the possibilities. Look where we are today. So, Byte magazine was very, very cool, but I didn't have it because I didn't have a computer back then. When I did finally have one, I learned most of my computer stuff through the kids in school. I didn't get a magazine for it. However, if I can slightly tweak the answer, instead of a video gaming magazine, because Bob's question is just, what were your favorite gaming magazines? I will instead insert Dragon magazine, which me and my friends bought tons of and loved and poured over it page after page every single month. Dragon magazine was amazing. It was Dungeons and Dragons primarily, but they covered other TSR related properties like Star Frontiers. And they had some really cool articles and neat, house rules you can add and things that'll flesh out part of the rules that you hadn't learned before. Very good stuff. And really well presented, lots of content compared to ads, nice comedy, comics at the end of it, Snarf Quest being one. Just fantastic. Dragon magazine was awesome. And I think Bob, in his full detail, he was saying, in addition, what was your favorite magazine? What was some of your favorite covers of the magazine? So I'll insert here the cover of issue 143, which is this cool F-14 Tomcat ship, I think, or something, some kind of airplane with a dragon approaching it. That was really eye-catching. When I saw that on the shelves, I was like, whoa, that's awesome. That's probably one of my favorites. I don't know if Bob is asking this because he's going to maybe recreate some of these magazine covers. Good luck with that one, Bob. The other one I will mention was actually one of our first bits of controversy in the in the mid 80s, before there was really any internet or chat lines or outrage culture. Something happened with issue 114. There was this fairly harmless image of a priestess, I don't know, making some sacrifice to the moon goddess or whatever the heck was going on there. But it caused a lot of outrage in the Dragon magazine community and people outside, like magazine news agents and stuff, because she is anatomically correct, and I think you can see part of her upper chest area in fairly decent detail that people were very, very insulted about. This is a magazine for kids. Why are you putting that horrendous imagery on there? And there was a lot of defense of the issue, and it got pulled. It was actually kind of hard to get. So that was interesting. That's a magazine cover that has a story of its own for dragons. So thought I would add that one in there. Anyway, so that's it. I'm going to wrap this up here. Thank you, Weebob, for throwing out some questions there. I'm enjoying the artwork here in the gallery. I'm going to continue to check out more of these. So, again, I'll put Weebob's original questions below, and then if you want to do some yourself, and also the channel, his new channel for the strictly artwork thing. And until next time, we'll see you down the rabbit hole.